Hello brothers, welcome to today's video. Before we get into the video, make sure you hit that subscribe button below this video so you can tune in for more videos of how you can become the kind of man that women worship. Now in today's video, I'm going to share how some of the biggest challenges men face in finding love in a romantic relationship are all symptoms of the same main core issue. And three of the biggest problems that men experience, and as I go through these, just take a moment and reflect on if these have ever been something that you've navigated. So the first big issue that men navigate in finding romantic love is that they find themselves in relationships where ultimately they're incompatible in. Now, they might find themselves 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line and suddenly look around and realize that this isn't actually their woman. And that's an experience that I had, and it's a story I'll get into a little bit later in the video. Now, the second big challenge that men experience in searching for romantic love is that they have these potentially promising relationships that they're excited about, and then things fizzle out a few weeks or a month into the relationship for some mysterious reason. And the last problem that men experience when searching for romantic love is that they feel like there aren't actually any women out there who meet their criteria for the kind of woman they'd like to explore with. So maybe you've experienced one or more of those challenges, ending up with someone you're ultimately incompatible with, having a potentially promising relationship that burns out after a few weeks, or feeling like there aren't actually any viable women out there for you. Well, no matter which of those challenges you've experienced or are experiencing now, the good news is all of those tie back to the same core issue. And that core issue is that as men, when we're dating or exploring with a woman, we are presenting versions of ourselves that are actually not authentic, that are actually not in integrity with our true nature. And the reason for this is far beyond our control, but it is our responsibility to make the change. So the reason for this is this societal script. It's the conditioning that happens that tells us what we should be. And when we try to be what we should be, we separate from our real identity. And even we've inherited programming from culture and society that tells us the kind of woman that we should be with. And when there is a separation between what our encultured minds believe and what feels deeply true to us, we will suffer until we come back into alignment, until we understand what's true for us, who we are, and develop the courage to bring that to the world and bring that into our dating lives. Now, I mentioned towards the beginning of this video that the challenge I experienced in relationship was ending up in a long-term relationship that was ultimately incompatible. And this was a 4-year relationship, and around year 3, something started whispering inside of me that this relationship was no longer for me. And that really confused me. And I tried to push that knowing away for a long time because on paper, everything looked good. There was nothing actually wrong from the outside looking in. It was a relationship that everyone saw as great. It was probably a relationship that many people would have wanted for themselves. And there was nothing wrong that I could identify except this deep knowing. And when I pushed that deep knowing away, when I tried to quiet it, I was disconnecting from my core. I was separating myself from my true identity. And that wasn't the only part of me that I wasn't owning. I wasn't owning the shame that I felt around the sexual dysfunction that I was experiencing at the time. And I've made another video about that. I wasn't owning the dissatisfaction that I was feeling in my career. And I wasn't owning the deep knowing that I wasn't ready to be married to this woman that I was engaged to. And that was creating a separation. It was introducing so much static into my frequency that it was only natural I'd attracted a mismatch. I was giving off this image that wasn't actually me. So the woman that I've attracted had fallen in love with that image, matched with that image, and not actually matched with my authentic self. And this is the issue that so many of us get caught up in. And once I started bringing myself into alignment, once I started noticing the places that I was out of integrity with myself and tying up those loose ends, which was some of the hardest work I've ever had to do, of having that conversation with my fiance at the time that we weren't going to get married, of coming out into the world and saying that I was experiencing sexual dysfunction and that I needed help, of admitting that I wasn't happy in my career. And once I started bringing those pieces into alignment, once I started coming back to my center and my true nature, very quickly, my ideal partner appeared. And that's happened twice now. So for any man who's experiencing any of those problems that I mentioned earlier on in the video, in a relationship that feels incompatible, not feeling like there's a viable woman out there for you, or a history of potentially exciting relationships that just fizzle out over a few weeks or a few months, the solution is getting really fucking honest with yourself about the loose ends in your life, about where you're leaking energy, about where you're placing attention that isn't giving a return to you. Because when we do that, when we come back into integrity, when we trust our internal knowing at any cost, and not just know our internal knowing, but take action on it, we come into integrity and it cleans up our aura. It purifies our frequency so that the frequency we're sending out is actually ours. It's not the frequency of this constructed image. It's not this frequency of the person that we fabricated that we think women will like. It's actually us. So when that frequency goes out, it can only attract a woman, only attract a partner who is in resonance with that frequency, who is just going to click in with us when she arrives. Now, if this sounds like something you want, coming into full integrity, cleaning up your aura and submitting a frequency that brings in everything that's meant for you, but you're not quite sure how to get started, book in a free call with me at the link in the description, and we can talk about how you can become the man that your woman worships. Whether you book in that call or not, here's some practical tips that I'll provide to you in this video to help you come into integrity. And before I share these tips, this is not easy work. You are going to have a desire to develop yourself beyond where you currently are, and you're going to have a willingness to take responsibility for everything in your life. Now, I might have just lost a few of you, but it is no longer about pointing the finger. It's about pointing the thumb. How did I contribute to this? It's not about the women. It has always been about you. And until we come into that acknowledgement, nothing's going to change in our lives. So here's the practical tips for coming into integrity with yourself and ultimately attracting the woman who is a perfect match for you. So the way to begin this process is going into your darkness, of really taking a sober, close look at the areas in your life where you are not content, where you are dissatisfied, where you're disgusted, where you are frustrated, and not just looking at those places of your life and then bypassing or distracting yourself, but letting you sit in the discomfort and actually feeling the negative emotions that arise when you sit there. Allowing yourself to maybe cry, to maybe scream, to tell people who are close to you in your life how tired you are of where you're at, of how unlike yourself you felt over the last 6 months, a year, 2 years. And then the next step, which is a little bit on the brighter side, is to understand what are the things in your life that make you feel more like yourself. Is it people that you spend time with? Is it a certain activity? Is it a type of book? Is it a kind of music? And giving those moments to yourself, intentionally increasing the frequency of those things in your life so you can spend more time in center and less time off center, right? The flip side of that is understanding the people, places, activities, foods that make you feel less like yourself and avoiding those things. Once we know that, the question of integration is, what are the real actions you can take? What are the boundaries and borders you can enact in your life to spend less time in the places, events, circumstances with the people who lead you away from yourself, and spend more time in a place that feels more centered and you feel like yourself? The next thing is actually within the arena of dating is to stop hiding parts of yourself from potential partners. And there is a strategy to this, right? You may not share everything on the first or second date, but if you are approaching a date trying to manipulate the image that you are projecting to try to get her to like you, you are setting yourself up for disaster. Even if that works for a period of time, for example, those exciting relationships that fizzle out after a few weeks or a month, what's happening there is that initially she likes what you're presenting to her, even though it's fabricated. Maybe she can't quite see through it. But within a few weeks or a few months, she is going to see through it, whether she actually knows consciously you're manipulating her or unconsciously just feels the energy that you are off center. She will lose interest and she will lose attraction. Now, let's say you're really good at projecting that image of having it all together or being somebody that you're not entirely. That can result in another problem that we talked about earlier, is that you find yourself in a longer term relationship that you feel trapped in, even though you feel incompatible, where it feels like you've been in it so long, you've gone through so much, maybe you live together like I did, and now you can't quite get out of it. And the third problem is that maybe you feel like there just aren't any viable women out there for you. If that's the case, your frequency, your field of attraction just truly is not powerful enough to draw that kind of woman towards you. So spending more time in that space where you feel connected to your essential self, where you feel connected to your true nature, where you are excited about the work that you are doing, when you are inspired by the people that you're hanging out with, your frequency becomes more powerful, and you will notice that women that do meet your criteria do exist, and maybe you'll notice that your criteria are actually different than what you initially thought. Maybe your criteria were what society told you about the woman that you should want, and what you actually want is a little bit different, and then you start to notice those women in your field. So it starts about cleaning yourself up, coming to integrity with yourself, with your core nature, which takes courageous honesty, which takes meeting the parts of us that we believe are unacceptable or unlovable or inadequate, and integrating those parts of us is ending the internal conflict. When we do that, man, the frequency that we give off is so powerful. We walk into a room and our energy fills that room. Without puffing our chests out, everybody's eyes are on us and we don't feel self-conscious. So I hope this video helped. I hope it helped identify a few of the problems that men see in relationship and the core root cause that we can all heal to become the kind of man that women worship. If you got some value from this video, make sure you drop a like, a comment, and hit that subscribe button. I will see you on the next one.